Hello, everyone, and welcome to another on dotnet Live. I'm your host, Myra Wenzel, with my co hosts, Cecil Phillip and Kim Soper. And
Hello.
today, I'd like to welcome today's guest, Stéphane Royer. He's going to be talking about data processing with ETL.net. How about you introduce yourself a little bit, Stéphane?
Okay. How shall I introduce myself? Well, let's say basically I'm a developer. I'm developing on Microsoft technologies for now 24 years. I've been working on .NET since 2004, which makes 18 years of development on .NET. Well, I maintain applications in finance, developed applications in finance, made a little bit of BI. Well, which led me to where you know now. And well, on top of it, I created a company with an associate. At the same time, I was a consultant, and I made an open source project which is called the Ethernet, which I'm going to talk about right now, and also have a large family to take care of, which takes me a lot of time, which is why I mention it, because it takes a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of time.
All right, and hopefully we'll get some contributors from the show today as well. So, Cam, are you going to cover our related bits?
I sure am.
All right.
And I love how I cut Myra off right there. She was,
I was going to say, let's jump to that. Like, oh.
It's so smooth, man. So smooth.
Well, managing screen shares and video stuff, and it's hard. All right, so this week's related bits is a document we found on the Azure Architecture Data Architecture Guide in the docs on the Microsoft Docs. This document is a brief summary, basically, of what we're going to be talking about today, of what ETL is: extract, transform, and load. It lays the problem out of synthesizing single data sets from multiple disparate data sets, and it also compares that to ELT: extract, load, and then transform. So this document, it's pretty short. It's only a few paragraphs. If you want to know what ETL is, this is a good summary of it, but I suspect Stéphane is going to tell us all about it this week in the hallway track. So I think we should just move on with that.
All right, Stefan. So let's move it to your presentation then. Let's.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk to you about ETLnet. Actually, what is ETLnet? Just to start, because I know that many people don't really know what is an ETL. So you mentioned, so you spoiled. Thank you. So an ETL indeed is meant to extract, transform, and load some data from several sources to another one. And I wanted to make something that was mixing data processing, transformation, and such for .NET developers. So at the end of the day, I wanted to have everything that SSIS was providing to me in beta, because SSIS has some flaws here and there, and to have it working into something that works like LinkU that we use for entity framework and such, for example. So at the end of the day, if you want to summarize, ETLnet is, let's say, an ETL-like feature mixed with a link-like syntax, and yeah, that's what you get at the end of the day. I tried to make the best of both worlds because I didn't have what I needed for a project I'm going to talk about later. So, as I mentioned before, I come from business. I made a bit of business intelligence for a year or two. And of course, business intelligence, for those who don't really know, because technically speaking, the point is to get data here and to make reports. But at the end of the day, to speak in a trivial matter, the point is to handle data to make it speak. In the BI world, you handle data using an ETL, and you make it speak with reports to make it simple. And in the project I needed, I wanted to have something to process using .NET for a specific context, because we worked on a software, and I was looking for projects in .NET, and I found some of them, but I wasn't extremely happy. So I found Shoe ETL, ETLast, Rhino ETL. At the end of the day, the ETL that was suiting me the most was Rhino ETL, but still it wasn't complete enough. And most of ETL are just help us to read or write data sources, but there's nothing about this transformation, and the loading is quite limited in most of these tools. And I really wanted to at least cover SSIS, but add some stuff that I needed that were, according to me, missing in SSIS. So, I ended up, with something like this. I had nothing for my project to rely on. So I had to think of something. So, then initially I considered Link. Why Link? Why Link? Well, because it can process data and search, so it looks cool. But it's a black box, and I needed to have control of what's happening during the process. I needed to have control on what happened once the process is done, to have a summary of what was running, as well after everything is done. So our link wasn't suitable for me. More of a link. If you don't use it correctly, of course, it relies a lot on link to object, on the provider that is linked to object, which is the provider that everybody has in mind. But there's many providers for link. But at the end of the day, link to object is used by a lot of people without even knowing. And this has the problem that it loads everything in memory, or almost everything in memory, or at least the data source is loaded in memory, which is I didn't want to have, for obvious reason, if you have big sources of data. So the other alternative I had was SSIS, and as I mentioned, SSIS for me is in lack of a lot of features, especially upsert. That is dramatically missing in SSIS, according to me. Unless you use the ELT pattern for loading, and that's not what I wanted. Moreover, SSIS is heavy. You need to install a different software. It involves a different infrastructure that you need to set up for your installation. I wanted a piece of software. At the end of the day, it was easy to install. And when you have to deal with SSIS, you need to have a different server. You need to set up connectivities between both. And then from dotnet, when you call SSIS, it's hard to have a feedback on what happened. It's not straightforward. I needed something straightforward, simple to apprehend, and also from the architectural point of view and the infrastructure point of view, something that was easy to apprehend. I considered Docker, but Docker, not every client that we were considering had Docker. So I had to provide a software that was simple to deploy by not necessarily needing Docker. That's how I came up thinking of an ETL. So initially, how I actually started this ETL, I was thinking of, SSIS could be better. So, I always thought of it. It's crazy that SSIS is missing this feature, that feature. Things were missing. And there was a moment when I was doing a lot of reactive programming, working a lot with ReactiveX. And I was thinking, SSIS actually somehow is a reactive engine. When you see it working, I don't know if some of you already worked with SSIS. When you run your SSIS package in debug, you see all the lines, that are pouring on your data flow and such. And this is reactive programming. You put operators, you combine your data and such, and your operators take decisions, hold some data here or there, and then decide to release some of them. And that is actually reactive programming. And I was thinking, maybe I can use ReactiveX as some sort of ETL, and by adding some more operators and such. So I started this way, and I realized that actually, still ReactiveX wasn't the most suitable tool to somehow implement an ETL for .NET environment. So there was the issue with operators that are already missing, and the error handling that is not exactly what I would have loved to have if I wanted to somehow reproduce SSIS for developers. And plus, on top of it, ReactiveX has to deal with hot streams and cold streams, and it's hard for developers, to think in terms of this. I wanted to exclude all this logic that when you develop an ETL, you don't want to think of what's hot, what's cold, and such. It can lead to a lot of confusions when you and to terrible bugs. Actually, let's imagine you've got some rows that are duplicated. So, I came to the conclusions I had somehow to redo some sort of reactive engine behind the scenes that worked only with hot streams, and that was handling data errors the way I wanted. For errors to appear at the end of the day exactly at the place where it was occurring into the stream system. So I developed this. I started to have something that was extremely interesting, and in parallel, actually, in the middle, I created a company with an associate in finance, of course, because I live in Luxembourg. And in finance, as you know, you need to process lot of data. And at the end of the day, I ended up using this tool into the system to process very large amount of data, which permitted us to have at our side at the company to have some sort of reliable ETL, quite efficient. And at my side also, it was cool because at my side and for the open source community, it was cool because the ETL is actually tested severely against live data. Every day now, we process millions of data with this ETL for finance with no error at all. So no exception is occurring unless there's actually a problem with input data. And I'll show you how we can handle it somehow at our system. I never, for example, with something, an error happens with SSIS most of the time. We need to reproduce the bug at our side. With this ETL here, we just know exactly what's the error. We don't even need to run again the process to know what was actually the issue. We know, this error is this. I need to correct, or I know that in this file, it was this row that had this specific param. And that's something, for example, that once a param occurs with SSIS, it's much less easy to find. So, which is why, as you can see, this company is called Fan Process, and it's in this context. I mean, I give the name because thanks to this, we have something that is extremely reliable and something that suits a real life, real situation, problem solutions of problem.
So if I'm hearing you right, and let me know if I'm mistaken. So when I think about SSIS, and I know probably like a lot of folks that are in the chat right now had a little bit of history with SSIS in the past. I think about like, hey, I have like this designer first type approach. Like I have connectors and I, drag and drop some things and do some settings. And then now I kind of construct my pipeline, right? Like data in, and I want to do some work and it outputs to a place, right? The difference now, I'm looking at what you're doing or what you've done, and this is more of like a code first approach, right? Or it's a code only approach, I suppose, right? Like I write some code and then this is where the data is, this is where I wanted to go, this is where I wanted to look like. But from that perspective now, I can use my tools, right? Like I have debuggability or a little bit better debuggability, right? I don't know if that's a word. If it's not, I just made it a word. I have better debuggability into the process, right? And I can actually see, okay, well, this file's, this had a problem here. I could do logging. I could, again, all of my .NET packages and tools and all those types of things, I can plug it into it. And now that should make the process a little bit easier for me to diagnose what exactly is happening in my pipeline.
Yes. So actually, at the beginning, it was a way for me that the tool wasn't visual. But when you think about it, a visual tool is not efficient at all to develop. As a matter of fact, it's more a restriction. It gives the impression that it's easier because you just have to drop boxes and it shows you properties in front of you. And it gives this false sensation that it's easy. But as a matter of fact, it slows you a lot when you develop. Why a visual tool is actually cool when you develop is to have some sort of the feedback of what you developed, a schema, some sort of drawing. And as a matter of fact, I developed something that permits me to show detail visually, so that you develop by coding, but visually you can have a graph that is shown to your eyes, and even in the tool we made. So this is not on the open source side, but the tool we made uses this part to show on screen. So this data flow, plus when an error happens, the box where the error occurred is red. And on every flow, on every box, it shows the amount of lines that it issued. So at the end of the day, I believe I got something that is quite interesting in terms of productivity, but still doesn't kill completely what we like in SSIS. I mean, having a visual overview that permits you to see very quickly what your stream looks like, if you corrected something correctly to the other and such. And I also implemented some sort of debug that somehow looks like SSIS, because it's in SSIS, when you run your SSIS package, you need on many occasions to put some sort of breakpoint into a link between two operators. And I reproduced also this mechanism into the tool so that you can see what lines are going through your pipes. We'll see later.
Okay, got it. And I'm looking in the chat real quick, and it looks like John Public. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. He's talking about they're talking about the ability to even do source control. And I remember how much of a pain that was trying to source control SSIS packets.
You can source control SSS, but it's not the subject. Because you're developing this ETL actually is a .NET library. It's just a .NET library that provides to .NET developers ETL features to developers who are somehow used of making LinkU. But you're just working with a library that looks like LinkU. With operators that we used to see in ETLs, and that's it. So of course, this control, you work with it with no problem. You integrate your ETLs into your code. And the software that I made, I even integrated it into the application using Roslyn, so that some advanced users can even code their ETLs. And on live, I'm showing the visual that I was mentioning before. So everything's possible.
Got it. Cool. So do you have any demos or anything cool that we could take?
I've got some demos. We're gonna try to make some finance together. I hope it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna share my screen. What do we have?
Here I can. There we go. Now we're sharing your screen.
Thank you. Yeah. So don't need this part for now. So let's go into something that is quite trivial in finance. Let's show this. Yes. I'm gonna hide this. How am I gonna do? Like this, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. And I don't need you anymore at the moment. Like that. Yeah. Well, I guess it's okay.
Looks great.
It's okay. Okay. Well, in finance, there are some companies who are managing portfolios. Portfolios of all the money that's held somehow, and they put money into this or that product and such. So we can see that I spent X amount of money in this value, X amount of money in this value and such. So at this date, my portfolio was made of, for example, X million of stocks in Microsoft, and X million and stocks in this, or X million in this fund. Well, that's what we call a position, and we've got one position every day. So every day we've got a composition, and what we're investing in are called securities. Security, for example, can be an equity or a share class. We're not going to go to. I'm not going to explain finance. It's just And most of the time, what we see in finance, we've got files, the usual daily life of developers who want to import files. So every day, for example, they receive a file. So for example, the structure of my CCAV. In my CCAV, I've got the portfolio P1, and I'll go also in my CCAV one, I've got the portfolio P3, and I've got another CCAV. There's only one portfolio, there's the portfolio P2, for example. And we've got also another kind of set of data. You've got every position for every day. Depending why this day on this date I invested 10 euro. I mean, I've got 10 euro in this security, and the identifier is this one, and also this one, and so on and so on and so on. So, most of the time I've been in too many companies where developers are taking weeks, literally, to have a proper ETL to import this. In a very straightforward manner, and with no bugs at all and such. I believe it's not really acceptable to import to be able to import this, in a proper way, dealing with upserts, dealing with loggings, dealing with deployments. Well, in test, I've got my file that comes from here, but in production, it can come from here. Well, it takes always a long time. I believe it should take a couple of days, not a couple of weeks. So, we're going to try to make something together to import these files into this data model that we see here. So here is another word I just dropped inside my my .NET Core entity framework context, because I didn't want to spend time to show you how to do it. Everybody knows to do it, and well, it's everything to show it anywhere on the net. My migration is done. I've got my database that is ready. So, well, we're going to start, for example, hold on. I've got my backup plan on the right side here, because, well, never sure enough. Yeah. So we're going to make our process here, for example. So let's start. We're going to import my my libraries just to show you, that I'm not hiding anything. So we start with this. This I didn't expect this to annoy me. Yeah, good.
You can click hide.
Hide. Yeah, good suggestion. Yeah. So let's make a .NET add package, and we're gonna add, for example, .etl net, I believe, core. That's it. And we're gonna get some files, file system. I tried not to embed a lot of things into the core of ETLnet for developers to pick up whatever they want, and not to have to deal with a bunch of operators that they might not need. So now we're gonna, for example, list every file. So we're gonna make a process that we're gonna call, well, let's say first, let's do the backbone stream process dot create. Yeah, well, why not? Stream process runner dot create. Let's put into this, and let's say that it's going to be triggered by sending it a string. I type very badly, guys. I'm terrible in typing. I'm always impressed when I see people, typing in half a second. I can't. I just can't. I'm sorry. Well, you can see. So.
Could you make the font size a little bit bigger, please?
We're fine here. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like the editor text is bigger than like the rest of VS Code.
Okay.
I don't know what that is, but that's fine.
So this is how we bootstrap the stream, and then you make something like task.
I think main has to be public too, no?
It should work.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, well, I'll make it public.
I could be wrong, but I think main has to be public.
Get the result, runner dot execute async, and I send, for example, that's it. And then, well, I bootstrapped my application. So now here I've got just an input, a stream that contains one single element that will contain just this.
Okay. Do you have to await the runner execute async?
Yes, it was to see if you followed.
Okay.
You're following. Good. Yeah. So, well, I'm gonna then get all my files. So the point is to list my files. So cross apply. So I'm gonna take. So apply folder files, and we're gonna say that actually, well, I want my files to be taken from here, copy path. It's gonna be okay this way, like this. Yeah, it should be fine. Supply for the files, and then I give the name of my operator. Get all files from folder. And then just for the sake of it, just for the first demo, I'm going to show their name. That's it. So let's run it.
Moment of truth.
That's it. So yeah. So I simply listed. So I can actually I see everything as a stream, which is why, by the way, on the website, I show a stream. I show the stream like this, because actually the point of Ethernet is to see everything as a stream. And even when you list files, actually it's a stream of files, and then this stream of files will go through an operator. And that's, by the way, one of the issues I found in SSIS. When you need to look through files, you need to actually make a control flow that goes through files. You need to store in some sort of temporary variable the path to the file, and then you run a data flow to against the file. I don't believe it's extremely straightforward, and I wanted something that was extremely straightforward. And then, well, once I've got my files, for example, I'm going to get only files here. How can I do? I've got many operators. Which one? Yeah, I'm going to use this one, much easier. I'm going to take everything that looks like this. So I'm going to take only portfolios, for example. So I make star.portfolios .csv. And then I'm going to screen, then, yeah, terminal. That's it. So now I can handle text files. I'm going to cross-supply its file. I'm going to pass. I use cross-supply because I've been a specialist of SQL Server, and cross-supply is the operator that issues rows based on one input row. And that's the point of cross-supply something. So here, for every file, I'm going to issue on the following stream all the files, all the rows that are properly passed.
And this first string that you're passing as a parameter, is that like goes for the logging?
So this can be actually anything. Here, you're talking about this, you mean, right?
No, on the other ones, on the other.
No,
methods.
yes, this is for logging, and this is for providing the visual of the of UETL if you ever want to see it. So somehow it's to force, for example, the developer to put his command, and also to have an easy feedback. You know, it's like in SSIS, you can't put an operator with no name in SSIS. Well, that's the same here. You're compelled to give the purpose of the operator that you drop in here. That's for the very same purpose than in SSIS. Is it clear?
Yeah.
I've never worked with SSIS, so like I don't have that background. I'm
okay.
So treat me as a newbie.
No problem, no problem. So anyway, now is the moment when I'm gonna cheat.
Did you say you're going to cheat? Is that what you're doing?
I'm going to cheat. I'm cheating. Look at me. I'm cheating.
Where did that code come from?
So fast.
So here I'm telling the system, the operator, to parse every input file by using this mapping. So this is a mapping. Actually, here it's not a func, it's an expression, so that actually this mapping can work in reading, but also in writing, if it's ever necessary. And here, well, I can, yeah, for example, let's show, I'm going to get my, well, I'm going to do like this. Write my portfolio name. And for example, well, why not? Okay, I made something. Oh, yeah. That's it. And now I should see the content. That's it. So we're going to double check in input files. What's it up? My input file that contains portfolios, and we've got it. Let's imagine we have 0 ones. I'm going to put another one here. I'm going to remove the copy. I'm going to put 2 here, and I'm going to drop, for example, for portfolio. Well, I'm going to make portfolio 5, 6, 6. Yeah, everything for 6. Six. Awesome. Let's try again. Let's see everything. So the point actually is to use the system to iterate for you. Actually, what I wanted to avoid and what I saw in many ETL-like tools for .NET developers is that this tool let the developer iterating through everything. So every time for each. That's what I wanted to avoid. I wanted to have something that looks straightforward and that is easy to interpret if you want to have it to see visually what's happening. So here we're iterating through files. Here we're iterating through every row. And well, right now we just have at the end of the day to save it. So actually, what occurred to my mind is that in SSIS, when we've got many tables, for example, let's look here. Here we've got our portfolio and we've got our CCAVs. And in many ETL and SSIS especially, it's quite a burden to have to make this link, which is a pity. Well, I say a burden. It's a big word. It's not a burden, but it's not straightforward. There's no out-of-the-box operator for this to deal with this, and it's a bit of a pity because actually, well, in a file, everything is together, and the fact that you have 2 streams that you need to unite again to make this link, it's not convenient most of the time. And most of what developers are doing in ETL when they're using SSIS is that first they load the CCAV and then they load the portfolio by making a lookup on the CCAV. And I believe it's quite a pity because, well, it's a bit long. It's not straightforward. So it happened to my mind like, well, okay, well, let's make something so that ETL actually remembers where everything is coming from, so that at the end of the day, you can make the link without thinking in some sort of magical way. And the system is the correlation. So I correlate, I set for correlation everything that leaves this stream, so that later on, if this stream needs to be split into several streams, if I want to unite them, ETLnet will be able to join them without needing anything like a join or a lookup. It will be done somehow out of the box without doing anything. You'll see what I'm talking about. Set for correlation, and here I've got my, let's say, I'm going to call it like in my example I've got here, because I'm a chiller.
It makes it easier for demo purposes.
Yeah. Well, I'm already taking quite a lot of risk to show this to you, But well, I'm trying, So, but I need to cheat a little bit, Who knows what goes well. And what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna get this guy. I'm gonna then get my CCAS. So I'm gonna call it my CCAS stream. My CCAS stream is made with my portfolio file stream. I'm gonna make. Okay. That's better. A distinct, because as I want to ensure that I don't have any duplicate on my portfolios, I'm going to remove duplicates on my portfolios. So I'm going to make a distinct.
So Stéphane, I did have a question real quick.
Yes.
We had an audience member wondering what kind of different inputs they could use to correlate these various data streams. In your example here, you're using CSV files, but this audience member was wondering if they could, for example, use like a web API input.
Yeah, actually, so I've got at the moment some operators that were the operators I was needing on my project. I made a couple of more, and as I mentioned on the documentation of the website, first off, it's extremely easy to make extensions to ETLnet. And in the worst case, you have this do operator if you really have issues, and you have also the select operator that permits you as well to select data based on input data for every row. So that's the advantage when you're in SSIS. If you've got some strange accessing a website or a web API is not a strange use case, but I mean that whatever you need, you can do it with no params, which is not the case in SSIS. In SSIS, when you start to have some data that you need to input in your stream, well, you're kind of stuck in many occasions, and therefore you're compelled to make extensions for ETL for SSIS. And I don't know if any of you guys made any extensions for SSIS. I did, and as I mentioned on the documentation, making an extension for SSIS, it's swimming into the abyss of hell.
You are horrible. Brave man.
It's terrible. It's oh my god. I did it once. I tried to make it correctly, properly, for it to be maintainable, but holy cow, no. It's not made for it. It looks like it's made for it, but seriously, no. I said to people, if you need to make an extension for SSIS, it's really because you need it, because seriously it's a pain. It's really a pain, and that's exactly what I wanted to avoid for ETLnet. I wanted extensions to be extremely easy to make, and even if you didn't need extensions, even if you didn't want to deal with extensions, you have this do operator that can do stuff for you at every row, or you have this select operator that can issue some extra rows, or you have the cross apply operators that can issue for you several rows per row that is in the input of the stream. So you've got everything to escape, even if not every operator, not every add-on is done at the moment. By the way, if some people actually want to participate in the project, I do a call. If I've got some MongoDB developers want to have the operators and such, they're more than welcome to participate to the project. I'll be very happy to help them. It's not very complicated. All the hard stuff is done in the core, and making extensions is extremely easy. It would be fantastic if some guys could help me, for example, in some extensions. Wow, that's what at the moment I can import Excel. I can deal with Bloomberg files, for example, out of the box, at least to read them. What else can I read? XML file. Yes, XML files I can read in a very decent way, in a very fast way, because we have to deal with very big XML files. Well, I've got some extensions for it, and I would love to have some more, actually. But well, I'm alone to work on it at the moment, and some people can help. I would be very happy.
Nice. So we had an interesting question pop up. Oh, there you go. Looks like a can pull it up.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, but go ahead, Cecil.
I'm sorry. But as you can see, James Alexander here on YouTube is asking, like, what are scenarios I ought to choose using this over something like Spark? So I've personally never used Spark, so I don't know. Maybe some folks may or may not know what Spark is, but I'm guessing it does something similar. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or opinions about like the comparisons about when you'd use this one versus the other.
At my point of view, from my side, I didn't use too many ETLs because of my need was to use directly with .NET. I know that about some others, they are very efficient ETLs. I saw, for example, Clover ETL had some interesting things into it. Spark I didn't use, to speak frankly. I just know I needed something that was open source and that I could integrate in my application, and I also needed something that was very, 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 and I repeat, very easy to extend. And that's one of the biggest problem that we face most of the time, is that to extend an ETL, it's very hard. And well, I'm not talking only about SSIS, because SSIS, I told you what I went through. My goal was to be able to extend it easily, and I know that it's not easy in most of ETLs to have it done, because moreover, most of ETLs, they are visual tools. That's why extending it needs a lot of things so that it works also with the visual designer. The advantage of having it working only as a development technology is that you can use it. It's much more flexible. That's why actually I really needed it. And what needs to be known moreover is that SSIS was meant in many purposes to help BI developers to make their data speaking. And these people were not pure developers most of the time, and they needed an efficient tool to quickly drag and drop some files, to digest them, to make their report. And then developers, they needed such a tool, and well, something was existing somehow, and they started to use ETLs. But as I mentioned, interacting between the interaction between a development tool such as .NET, but I suppose it's the same in Java world, and an ETL such as SSIS, but it can be anything else. It's not this easy. The interaction, well, of course, exists, but it's not tight. It's not straightforward. You don't have a tight control on what's happening during your ETL process. And I'm not even talking about how to develop or how to debug your ETL within the execution flow of your application that is calling it. This is also a big issue I faced in my previous applications before, when I had to interact with SSIS. You have no control. You can't test from the start till the end the complete set of your application or architecture. And I believe it's some sort of a problem, even more when you embed a new developer in your team. The guy needs to set up his architecture. It's always painful to start to run your application. For me, when you have an application, you get sources, you hit F5 and it works. And when you have SSIS included in your development process, this is not possible anymore. And I wanted it to be possible because the goal also is to be able to have new developers to work very easily on the application, whatever the developers have to work on in the application.
Yeah,
I'm very talkative.
No, that's fine. And I have a very opinionated perspective when people ask like those types of questions, and they're good questions to ask. But like every time someone asks, "Oh, hey, why should I use this thing that's written in .NET?" I'm always like, and we get this all the time. Like, why should I use YARP? Is a reverse proxy written in .NET? Why should we use that? Or why should we use this or the other? And for me, it's always like it's like a handful of things, right? Like one, you get the extensibility, right? Like I am a .NET developer. I don't write Lua, I don't write Scala, I don't write Haskell or any of these other types of things. And so for me, it's being able to use the tools in the ecosystem that I'm comfortable with and I'm productive
Yeah.
in. You know what I mean? One,
Yes.
obviously, it's great for .NET open source, culture. But like two, for my personal productivity, like I know .NET, I want to write .NET, right?
Exactly.
I don't know what Spark is written in. Again, I've never tried it. I'm gonna guess it's like a Java thing. I'm gonna assume. But like
Yeah.
what does that mean for me? Like having to stand up infrastructure and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there might be cases that your company needs to do that, and that's fine. But for
Yeah.
me, like I'm more than likely going to want to use the tools that I know that I'm comfortable with. And so if there's a .NET option, you know what I mean, I'd at
We
least
do
want
have
to
it.
try it out. I'd at least want
Yeah.
to try it out to be like, oh, okay, well, this is what this is, and I could try it out. It works. You know what I mean? And again, it's open source. Like I don't know if you want to use Mongo or I don't know, Cassandra DB or whatever the case is, like, oh great, like I could submit an issue, I could, I don't know, maybe do a PR or something like that. And now
Yeah, so
again, like all of us could kind of benefit from that.
yeah, so we have a .NET for Apache Spark, and we do have it on the .NET website. We have some tutorials on how to get started, but you do need Java as well. So it's like more complicated setup because you have like all these installations that you need. It's not as like download .NET and then run your project, right? And so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
beauty of this.
The goal was for me, I mean, I'm extremely lazy, so lazy that I'm willing to make incredible efforts to not do anything later. And that's what I did with ETLnet. I believe that an ETL shouldn't need any effort. It shouldn't need the painful architecture to handle, to deal with. It shouldn't need a bunch of documentations to say how to be able to finally debug your application on your computer. I hate this. As I mentioned, when I get sources of an application, I want to hit F5. Hit F5. I want it to work. I don't want to have this painful process of spending several days, because sometimes it happened to me. You come on an application, because you come to maintain. People need consultants to help them to maintain something, and it takes days to finally have the entire solution working on your computer. I believe it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable because if you've got this, that means that there's something wrong with your architecture. That means that once you're live on production, you can face issues, more issues than what you already face in real life. So something that is architecturally neat is, according to me, something that at the end of the day, for this purpose, will cause less problem. It will cause some other problems in some other stuffs that you're developing, but at least for this, for the ETL purpose, you won't have all these issues. And sometimes, the server is down. I didn't deploy it correctly. Yeah, because indeed it's two solutions and it went on the different server. The setup wasn't correct. Here, everything is in your source code, everything together. Everything, it's much more straightforward for maintenance. And clearly making this, because actually, to speak frankly, in a while, I didn't even use my own ETL. And my associate is using it a lot. Actually, he's much better than me in working in my own tool that I developed. And he can make this in a couple of seconds. For me, I'm talking with you, so it's hard for me to do it in a second. But you see, it's not many lines of codes, And here, what I did, I simply, took all my CCAVs. I made a distinct on it. I said, make a distinct on a CCAV code, do extrude duplicates. You create the instance of the CCAV, so use some sort of format of your object that you want to save, and then you simply make save, and it's going to make an upsert using this key here. And that's all. And at the output of this stream, and that's what the beauty is somehow, according to me, is that here you've got a stream that lists all your CCAV. If they already existed, it gives you the object for free with the ID that was already existing. If it needed to be updated, it's updated. If it needed to be inserted in this stream, you get every CCAV that has been inserted, plus all the generated data from the database. And moreover, by default, this works using bulk load. So, for example, let's imagine that this file contains millions and millions of lines. It won't fill your memory, and it will perform extremely quickly because it's bulk loaded into SQL Server. So it's going to be quite extremely fast. I've got some people indeed who are impressed because actually SSIS, for example, it takes a very long time to load initially for security reason. It creates its sandbox and such. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of memory as well. And the advantage of this is it's got a very low memory footprint for the executable. And if you use it properly, some operators, take memory, like the sorting operator. So that sometimes it's needed to make some left joins. But if you work properly, you can have something that doesn't take memory at all, whereas you process millions of rows in a very, very efficient way. So that's the whole point of it. You've got a bulk load and you've got a series of operators here, so you can seek on several keys. For example, here, I seek on an internal code, but if you don't have an internal code, for example, no, it's not it. If you don't have the internal code, you can seek on the name, for example, because it happens many times, for example, in finance, what can identify security? It's some sort of internal code. It can be the Bloomberg code. It can be an ISIN code. And you can say, well, I want to find my object based on my ISIN code first. And if I didn't find it, I try to make the observed based on the Bloomberg code, for example, and such. And that's what is dramatically missing in SSIS. And that's what I implemented here in the tool. That's it. And to come back on the normalization, when I said, well, when you've got one file that is actually supposed to end up in two different tables, the problem is, for example, to join these tables and search together at the end of the day. This is something that is dramatically missing in SQL in SSIS. And here, for example, I'm illustrating you actually what's happening here when I was mentioning this correlation. This correlation here, permits every row to be tracked that goes in here and in here. And here you see I saved every CCAV that goes. I inserted every CCAV that goes to the through this operator. And I am inserting also portfolios, but before I'm trying to say to the to Ethernet, hey guy, try to recover the CCAV that corresponds to the line that was that initiated this portfolio. Even though here you've got a distinct, even though here there's a distinct as well, you've got to save and such. Where it comes from within the file is tracked, and here you can get actually the rated CCAV that is linked to a portfolio. If you look at the file here, you've got in one line, you've got the CCAV, and you've got the portfolio, and this will go in a table, this will go in another table. And here, thanks to this mechanism here that you've got here, is triggered here, you can make such operator that permits the system to find whether you've got two different streams, to join them together without even thinking actually how it's joined. It comes from the same row, therefore it should be joined. That's what it's doing here. It joins, it finds the rated CCAV, and which permits me to make my portfolio. I create my portfolio with the code, with the name, and I set the system in a stupidest way, save, just save using this business key, and it will upset for you. It will update if it exists, insert if it doesn't exist, and return the existing, the portfolio with the code.
Let me ask you something real quick, just because I've seen a couple of questions, and I think I already know the answer to this. But our friend Jose was asking about using SQLite, and I think the answer is with that .ef core save extension method there. I guess the answer is whatever you can use with EF core, you can use.
So somebody asked me the question already on GitHub. My answer was indeed first this one. I said at the moment, unfortunately, I didn't have the time nor the necessity, because I'm alone to work on this. Plus, I've got 6 kids. Plus, I got a company. Plus, I'm a consultant. So I would like to make a lot of things. There's a lot of things I would dream to make on this, but I didn't have time. And I had this question about SQLite. Indeed, if you have SQLite, use the ETL net, the dotnet, sometimes, well, my entity framework extension for ETLnet that you see here. And at the moment, I tried. At the moment, I don't have the capability to make the bulk load for SQLite. Therefore, the system will work on the native ETL entity framework core way to make inserts. So it can work as long as you've got something that's compatible with the entity framework. It will work. It will work. If you want something that is native, like I did, for example, for SQL Server, if you go on the website, I make some demonstrations about how I use this operator in SQL Server. I made something to operate with SQL Server without using entity framework. Well, some guys, if they know MySQL correctly, MySQL or SQLite, they can make it by getting inspired by what I did for SQL Server, for native SQL Server. It's not very complicated, and as I mentioned, you guess you can do also your own for at the moment. You can do your operators. I'm extremely keen to help people to make their own extensions, or to simply help them implementing their solution. Yeah.
Great.
I imagine that a lot of the questions like, do you support Excel? Those kind of things are answered
Excel is
on your
supported out of the box.
documentation, right?
Yeah, my documentation is a big work that is ongoing. I made the essential to be able to start quickly. For now, my priority on ETLnet is not to extend developments. Of course, I've got a lot of things in mind for ETLnet, but my biggest project right now is to enlarge the documentation for it. I've got some operators that exist. I didn't even mention into the documentation. I've got, for example, the sub-process operator that permits to run sub-processes for each operator and such. I've got a lot of things to make in documentation.
Awesome.
But as I see, for example, the time is flying.
Yes. We need to wrap up, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm just going to show you what is possible to do with ETLnet. This is what you can see, for example, if you know how to handle React, some components and such. Well, you can then get this. You can give it stream and such, and that's one way to have visual feedback of what your ETL looks, for example.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stéphane. And we are at time, so let's run just our focus .NET Conf focus on Maui promo. All right, so it is tomorrow, so don't miss out that event. It will be huge. And also, we're gonna return next Monday with Chris Ayers. He's gonna be discussing configuration. .NET should be a great show. He's gonna cover some of like the best practices and things that you shouldn't be doing anymore in .NET and kind of the new best practices. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right.